Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Let's Build Your HubSpot Map with Bryan Ossa. I'm your co-host, Chris Carolan. Starting something new today, Bryan. How you
Oh
doing?
yeah, starting all kinds of new things. It's always a good week. Having the reset time that we took last week to kind of get things realigned is fantastic.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. I definitely missed showing up here every morning,
Mm-hmm.
so I vowed to do my best not to do that again.
It's
Um,
fine. Life happens. We know it.
Oh, it was a good week. A good week. Learned a lot. Didn't want to pass up learning experiences like ERP implementations. Once in a company's lifetime event. They hope. So learned a lot at a customer site last week, and we've been working on relaunching this Let's Build Media,
Mm-hmm.
um, a more robust program, if you will, of daily shows and getting more people involved. It's really going to take a large number of people to help close this knowledge gap, and
Mm-hmm.
real happy to start with you today, man.
Oh heck yeah, yeah. It's a real blast to kind of get this thing off the ground. And I know we've been kind of chatting behind the scenes quite a bit about what all of this is going to be looking like, and so really excited to kind of be a part of it and helping level up just skill set, knowledge gaps, etc., just to make everyone's life easier and more accessible. And I know today was just kind of like a big step in that direction as we're kind of looking into, got to start somewhere. So what better place to start than getting started with your business? And so that's a lot of what the focus I was thinking to be kind of chatting on today, and kind of it fits in the ecosystem. And the bit like to your point when we were talking about it earlier, you can't exactly get started with a tool or plurality of tools until you really know what you want to be accomplishing. Got to start somewhere.
Yes. I think so many people jump into a tool like HubSpot because they make it really easy. To
Mm-hmm.
their credit, they make it really easy to jump in and let's say I want to email some people, or I want to manage some contact information a little better. It's really easy to start getting in there and doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But before you know it, and it's always this fine balance between starting to make money and trying to sell stuff, but then creating a real foundation that you can grow on. So I love talking about building blocks and strategy, and that's really what this series is going to be all about, because um a lot of people need help with this topic. They look to they often make the mistake of of thinking directly or indirectly that just HubSpot is this magic tool that's going to help them grow, and
Not just
HubSpot
HubSpot. It's just
becomes the
software in
strategy,
general.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, these tools are not the strategy. They help you execute your
Mm-hmm.
strategy. So if you don't have your strategy documented or even well thought out, your tools are not going to be well thought out, and you're not going to get the results you're expecting or hoping for. So that's what we're all about on Monday mornings, starting from the beginning.
Yeah.
So you mentioned we're going to talk about some of those building blocks today. Why don't you
Yep.
just get us started?
Yeah. So before diving into all the nitty gritty, I know a good thing to kind of get noted is, hey, having an agenda and a meeting summary. And similar to how we do that during our conversations, it's not a bad place to kick this conversation off today. And that's really just, we're going to be going over a couple things pretty simply. To your point, we're going to be going over the strategy, creating your overall game plan. Prior to that, we'll also simultaneously with that, we're going to be going into the whole, we'll call it establishing yourself. And what I mean by that is more like the infrastructure side of things and what we were just talking about, where you dive into HubSpot or similar tools, you're kind of just going into it, hoping to just start using it the way you can and hoping it solves a problem. chances are it's going to solve that problem. But if you haven't really articulated what that is, it's just going to actually get worse and not better. Which is why so many times you'll have an experience where hop into HubSpot, you just start using the CRM to populate contacts however you can. You're using the sales pipeline however you can. And now you are 6 months into your business. You're doing pretty well and scaling like crazy. You've hired 3 employees and your system is a mess. And had you just taken a little bit of extra time initially to get it all cleaned up and ready to go, you could have avoided that altogether. And I know I've suffered from that. So many people I've talked to have suffered from that. And so just getting ahead of that curve is really important. So that's part two. And then part three is really just taking that plan, taking those tools and executing on it. It there's so much that is involved with making a business that is reaching for the sky and just excitement about I want to focus on this, I want to focus on that. And then you have 4 different directions that you could go, and you get maybe 10% of the way into one before you shift to another. Then you get to 30% on that one, and you shift to another. Next thing you know, you have a half dozen or more different things that you're going after, all of which are at early stage versus just picking one, focusing on it, and getting it 80% of the way there so it can run itself.
Yeah, and I think that definitely resonates a lot, and it still astounds me um, how far companies get, and that's a part of why we're discussing this right now. Like, it's not like when you pick up a good product or a good service that solves a problem, um, you can go quite a while making a bunch of money, like building out a team. But it's really at this inflection point in like whether you're just starting out or like you've been kind of mom and pop shop mode and you
Mm-hmm.
really want to start growing and scaling. It's like you got to find this switch where project management
Oh,
becomes important. Internal communication plan becomes important. Prioritization, because you're trying to ask everybody to get on board with this. And so many companies get really, really far,
mm-hmm.
uh, you know, without addressing this. And then it kind of, smacks them in the face. So we don't want you to get smacked in the face. Uh,
The whole
and
mindset of flying by the seat of your pants can only go.
exactly. And yeah, so let's hit on that first
Yeah,
topic today.
yeah. Let's dive into that because I think the plan's important. Let's just get the software aspect out of the way, just because it's really easy to, and it boils down into really two big categories. You've already hit on one of them, and that's really the project management side of things. And I think that's something that gets swept under the rug way too quickly, way too easily, and really shouldn't. And honestly, there's no one right way. There's no best in class tool to use for your project management. It's whatever makes the most sense for you. And all that really needs to boil down to is a checklist of things you want to do, ideally down to 3 levels. And, it's referred to a lot of times as like the parent, child, and grandchild relationship, i.e., so like one task nesting below another, nesting below another. And all you really need it to be is what task you have, what subtasks you have under there, and what kind of project does that live under. So putting that in a HubSpot like instance, your project is implementing HubSpot. Your task might be setting up this CRM, and your subtask would be just creating an organizational contact records, just as a quick example. And however you want to do that, whether that's using a tool like Asana, Notion, whatever, or even just literally using your calendar and just creating tasks for yourself, that all works. You just need to have a way to keep track, reflect on all of it, and ideally not get anything left behind.
Yeah, and I think that's where I know definitely from my own experience, all this stuff, finds a way to work when you're passionate about solving problems for other people and you can help them. But the moment that you start involving other people
Mm-hmm.
in the process, if you don't have some kind of document or documented way to communicate and share responsibilities and understand what's going on, you know, that's when things, you know, get missed.
Yeah, you're entirely right about that. And that point of sharing it with others is that's where it boils down to consistency. And ultimately, that's the whole concept behind project management. It's to do two things. It's to manage projects. It's self-explanatory, but more importantly than that, it's creating a consistent methodological way of getting things done. If you're just kind of executing everything one off and you're having to recreate the wheel for every step that you want to do, you're then falling into that age old paradox of doing work about work that no one likes doing. The whole point of project management and using these tools isn't really to make work for you, but to simplify the work. You're not going to eliminate it. Like it's not possible. You're going to be creating more work for yourself. It doesn't matter whether or not you're using project management tools or not. You have to, like, you're going to be doing this some way, shape, and form. Whether that's keeping track of it on a document, or honestly, you're making more work for yourself when you don't keep track of any of it, then you forget it, and then you spend 3 hours trying to figure out whatever the MacGuffin was that you wanted to get squared away for your business. And it's just way easier to spend 2 minutes getting things organized and keeping track of that in the long run. And so there's something really important to be said there about keeping that in mind, and then that's where you start applying. I can start getting into the whole project management theorems, but we don't really need to worry about that right there. But really, you can boil it down into, is this important? And if it is important, is it an idea or is it an action? And ideas versus actions are very different things, because they tend to be much more higher level. So again, using that HubSpot implementation as an example, like, that is an action item, but it's not individual tactical tasks that you can actually follow every single step along the way. There's a lot of subcategories. You want to make sure you're slowly and surely chipping away at all those different steps so that you can keep moving things forward. And all of that is what leads into the aspect of choosing the different software that you're using and keeping that really as simple as you possibly can. Because similar to when you're managing a variety of different projects, the more that you're trying to keep track of, the messier it's going to be. And if you're keeping things simple, is going to make your life easy. And so what I recommend anyone who I'm talking to who's looking to get a business started, what do I start off with? Pick a CRM, pick an email tool. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. You honestly don't. You want to get a project management tool at some point, but you don't need that. You don't need to have design tool, 4 different AI tools, all your different accounting tools, all of those good stuff. You don't need to have all of that from the get-go. You just need to start as simple as you can and expand when you need it. And I'm sure that's something that you've seen as well, because how many times have you come to the conversation where a client's talking to you and mentioning, oh, so yeah, we're ready to go. And by the way, we're using 4 different tools for project management and 3 different tools for our CRM, and we're emailing people in 4 different places, and so on and so forth.
Yes, it's amazing when you hear that how customer centric they are, yet there is no centralized place of customer data.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you think people are so afraid of like utilizing a free CRM that behaves like literally the data input is exactly like your spreadsheet if
Mm-hmm.
you want it to be? Um, Yet there's some blocker like that. Like, why would I use a free CRM if the spreadsheet is working for me?
So I think there's a couple different answers to that question, and I think the biggest one is the fear of change. Just naturally speaking, we as people don't like change and are very resistant to it. And if you start diving into a tool that you're not used to or comfortable with or even know how it works, but you are used to a spreadsheet, there's going to be that resistance to it. But if you're able to distill and understand, hey, look, it is still a spreadsheet, it's just a much more accessible, organized way, and see where everything connects and put that map together. So understanding, hey, my first name, my last name, my email columns on the spreadsheet actually are just their associations within my contact record, and this is where I find them instead of over here. That's going to really simplify the adoption process. The other part of this that I think causes a lot of, we'll call it dread, is that as folks are kind of diving into these tools, there gets to be a bit of a gray area on doing what's best for your customer versus doing what's best for you. And what I mean by that is you get so excited about what your business idea is, how you want to do things, how all of that wants to move forward, that you're going with what you think is the path of least resistance. While that's good and that can potentially get you where you want to go quicker, in the long run, that's going to trip you up and that's going to cause more harm than good, because you're creating these things on behalf of yourself, not on behalf of those who you're creating this solution for. And so you need to shift that perspective a little bit to really focus much more on what your customers and prospects and those that you're trying to serve, what they need and how they need it serviced, versus the best way for you. I'm not saying ignore yourself completely. I'm not saying that at all, because if you're like, well, the best thing for my customers is to be managed in Adobe, one, that doesn't make sense, and two, that's not the approach to be thinking about. You need to be thinking more about how does it help them, and how can you keep that organized in a way that it might be more complicated for you, but it's much easier for them, without making it so complicated for you that it's not worth it and you don't want to do it.
Yeah. And even if you think about just think back to how you're serving them, how the interactions are going, how many times you have to look up in your email what was said last time, or copy and paste an email that you're sending to everybody. Mm-hmm. And, you set up your little templates in a Word doc or something like that. You're creating things that help you serve the customer. Mm-hmm. But it becomes very easy to actually set up systems that are very internally focused, because instead of starting with the CRM, we're usually starting with something like QuickBooks, mm-hmm. right? Because we have to, worry about taxes and processing transactions and bank account, management and stuff like that. So naturally that becomes the place where customer data exists in some format. And then we start building processes around that, around an accounting system. Mm-hmm. And naturally, and this is where I first started. I was doing quotes, and the whole customer system was based out of QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. And when everything is account based and you can't, save emails along with first name and last name effectively and have it separated, no communication is being tracked. I mean, that's why we say it's not a CRM. And a lot of these systems that suggest they're missing that RM part, the relationship management. Just because there's customer data there doesn't mean it's a CRM or has CRM capabilities. So I think that's a tweak that, again, as you think about how you're starting out or how you might be taking the next, stage of growth, just think about the customer for a few minutes, and what it's going to take to serve them, because that ultimately leads to, okay, maybe I can make some templates, for my emails so
Mm-hmm.
that they're consistent and I provide a consistent experience.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can start saving them in a CRM instead of my Outlook so that my colleague who needs to take care of them in the next step can see these things easily. And all of this stuff, like, you know, instead of having this local drive with these files that get edited over time and nobody knows which one's the right one and how are we going to name them, you just remove so much of that
Mm-hmm.
gray area when you roll into a system um, like and this is all free CRM. We're not talking about any fancy paid stuff here. It's like, can we just get a centralized place for the customer data? Can we just start there?
And there's something we set, like, there's a huge amount of importance there, because the thing that I kept hearing when you were mentioning this whole process is really getting ahead of yourself. And so it's the kind of thing where, to your point, like, you start focusing on implementing QuickBooks before you even have a customer, or you start investing in marketing efforts before you have what your brand strategy is, or your mission, or even what your unique value proposition is. And so these tools are designed to solve a problem for your business. But the thing is, you need to understand what that problem is, and you need to have maybe not the solution squared away, but at least an idea of the direction you want to go. And that's where it's a nice segue into just everything you want to be focusing for getting your business established and building that plan out. And getting that established really just boils into a couple different categories, and that's getting your idea flushed out. And once you have your idea flushed out, you want to create a little bit of a foundation behind your business. Use that foundation to inform your strategy, and then you just execute. And those four steps sound simple, and frankly, they are. They are so simple that they get glossed over. So when you start a new company, and you're just like, you don't even think about, oh well, what is my unique value proposition, like, well, why am I different from my competition, and what is my mission, and like, what is the difference between unique value proposition and a mission, like, what do I offer versus how can I help people, and who you even want to be targeting for. And when you're missing those three things, like what you offer, how it helps people, and who those people are, you're already starting off two steps behind your competition. You're already doing yourself a disservice, because when someone's asking you, "Hey, what is it that you do? What is your elevator pitch? What is your business? What is your tool?" Insert question here. You find yourself staggering over your words. You're fumbling to articulate what it is that you offer, and you're going to have a much harder time getting things started. And I can say that from absolute personal experience, having done this so many, like, in so many different times with so many different businesses, where sometimes I know like, I go through this exercise, know exactly what it is that I'm selling, or not even selling, but the thing is that I'm building. For example, like what we're talking about right here, this whole media library and resource kit that we're creating. Versus there's plenty of other ones where it's like, what tool do you build? I don't know. It's an acronym that I don't understand, and that's already going to make your that's going to make.
Yes, and like, it's a disservice to yourself, but it's also a disservice to the people that you're trying to help,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if they can't understand who you are and how you can help them,
Yep.
they're not looking at the ad for longer than a second. They're
Yeah.
scrolling right past. They're not clicking the buttons. No matter how great your thing is, if people can't understand what it is and how it's supposed to help them, they're not going to engage.
So
Um,
let's have a fun, quick exercise with that. In all honesty, we're going to break this into two things, and I'm going to put you on the spot right now, Chris.
okay.
Conveying conveying your message. We're going to define your unique value proposition, your mission, and your audience. We're going to do all that right there. And right
Uh
now, just to kind of show, like, how easy it should be to kind of have that put into place. And so, conveying your message. What's your unique value proposition? Like, what do you do?
oh man, on the spot. That has changed so
I know.
much.
Nope,
Uh,
it don't change so much. That's kind of the fun part of this. And honestly, like even walking people through that change would be a really would be a good thing to show, like what it was versus what it is and how it changed.
right. So our goal was originally targeting industrial manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
um, executives and department leaders, uh, to help them bring their customer facing teams together,
Mm-hmm.
with the right strategy and with tools with HubSpot as a customer platform,
Mm-hmm.
to solve for the pain of just siloed, disconnected experiences, uh, high levels of stress in the organization while people could not serve new customer expectations, modern customer expectations, because they didn't have the tools, that they needed um, to do so. They were still working off spreadsheets and disconnected websites and ERP systems. And I'm going to dig into this a little bit because what we found uh, was that this was still a B2B problem,
Mm-hmm.
not just industrial manufacturing. So as we learned, one thing we knew, and like we were inside of companies, is that we weren't sure that the appetite is there for change at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? Change that's not reactive. So it was kind of it was a testing phase, like, because I got a pipeline full of manufacturing, people that hasn't, that's very difficult to move for lots of reasons, uh, regulatory reasons, and just the way these industries have operated for years. They don't move faster than every 1, 2, 3 years, because there's literally no incentive for them to when the regulations don't get updated every 2 or 3 years, right? Meanwhile, there was a lot of people responding to the messages of a B2B pizza tracker, um, our place in the HubSpot ecosystem became clear as far as being able to bring some knowledge from a different space and kind of help people understand what a full platform meant,
Mm-hmm.
not only for industrial manufacturing, but every company that's been failing at digital transformation. So very quickly, we kind of included a second audience, which was the HubSpot ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if we, this knowledge gap that now this has transitioned into Let's Build Media, if that continues to grow and the ecosystem doesn't own the narrative of what HubSpot is or what it can do for people, then it doesn't matter how great it is,
Mm-hmm.
because people don't know what it is and they don't know how it helps them. And I did not anticipate bringing it back around
Yeah,
like
kind of
that,
on the spot, kind
but
of.
that's how it works. Like,
Yeah.
and that is the problem that, so I was super ready to just switch to like positioning for Let's Build Media, but it was helpful to go through that, because that is, we've made some decisions. Salim was able to get a job at a great elite partner agency, up to date, because we were having trouble, doing business the way that we wanted to do it, help people in the way that we knew they needed help.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but they got to be willing to, accept the help and understand. And as soon as like understanding came into play and we saw how impactful the baggage was related to either HubSpot being a marketing tool only or just SaaS baggage, or marketing agency baggage,
Mm-hmm.
like these people have been through it. It's not like they're not trying to change sometimes, but learned a lot about why, the landscape hasn't really supported them well in their change. When you have vendors that don't support or don't understand why salespeople can't be logging into multiple systems, to do their job, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where the disconnect between the SaaS space and almost every other space
Mm-hmm.
comes into play. Like most sales guys don't have 10 apps open, just to start working on their contact records.
No,
That
just one. Know what it
right,
is and who you're talking, like who you're talking to, and what the thing you're talking about is.
right. I mean, in this space, they're lucky to have one,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like they just want to be on the phone. They don't want to have any apps open,
Mm-hmm.
right? They want to be in person. They want to be on the phone. They want to be having live conversations, and that's a huge gap. That's something why we're so bullish on HubSpot. I know it can fill that gap, but it's just a huge learning curve. And as HubSpot continues to grow
Mm-hmm.
at speed, we got to help people understand that it is no longer a point solution. It
Mm-hmm.
is a customer platform. And what does that mean? The place where all your customer processes start and stop.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean HubSpot replaces everything in your business. In some cases, it probably can, but in most cases, it's not. It's not going to do your accounting for you. It's not going to do inventory management. Um, there's lots of things that still, aren't recommended,
Mm-hmm.
but it certainly is, I think, hands down the best place for the 360-degree view of your customer. Better than customer experience platforms, better than customer data platforms. It gives you the whole picture of communication, customer data, and engagement throughout. So not intended to be a pitch here, but
Mm-hmm. Oh no,
this is
I
why
completely hear you.
you have to start thinking about, do you want to scale your customer experience in this way? Like, and if you do, no matter where you are, it makes zero sense to start in a spreadsheet
Mm-hmm.
or out of your inbox. Like
Exactly.
literally, and this is based on, so if you don't know that, HubSpot, you can pull it up just like you would a spreadsheet, like believe that, right? It doesn't have to be harder than that when you get started, right?
And you can look at all that just through simple views and dashboards, and that will mimic the experience of being a spreadsheet, and it keeps it all in one place. And that one place should articulate everything that you're talking about that your business is. Like, what do you offer? Who do you offer? Like, what do you offer? Who do you offer it to? And how does that help them? And if you're able to do that and keep all of that organized in a way that you can see and understand and honestly use, you've already taken the first big hurdle that most struggle with. And so, like, I definitely appreciate you walking through that exercise, because again, everything you're talking about, uh, like what convey your message was to what let's build kind of is shifting to, like it articulates that. It articulates what you did, it articulates who you did it for, and why that made the impact. And I know that's something that's still evolving because we're still talking about it. And the cool thing about that is just, unlike a spreadsheet, that can all evolve with this tool, because it's a lot harder to shift the context around the spreadsheet. Sure, you can add columns, you can add charts, but ultimately, what does that accomplish for you? It's just one more field that you then need to maintain. Versus if you're using a more robust tool, you're able to kind of keep all of that data in one place, and you can organize it more effectively, so that when you lean more into that establishing your strategy aspect, you know what it is that you're going after. You know what your goals are. You know what your target. Well, you may not know what your target is, but you have an idea of where to look to establish your target and go from there.
Yeah, you have to be willing to put a hypothesis out there at the very least and
Oh
just
yeah,
start testing against that.
strongly advocate for that hypothesis. And honestly, like the null, if you're not familiar with it, the null hypothesis method, I'm sorry, and just applying that science to your business is a really good strategy. And it really whether or not you're doing that for your business as a whole or an individual project or even a series of projects, looking at something from a what is the problem, coming up with a possible solution, aka your hypothesis, and then running experiments on it is the best way to build and iterate. Because each time you complete an experiment, you understand what worked well and what didn't work well. You use that to adjust your hypothesis, and then you test again. And the love about that is ultimately it gets to answering the question of what is your definition of done? It doesn't exist, and that's okay. That's what makes this fun, and that's what makes a like we're talking about using a good tool so effective is that you're able to add more and more information into one spot, make the adjustments that you need to make, and continue growing in the direction you want to go.
Yes, well said. Um, this has been an awesome conversation. I look forward to having a bunch more of these. And I know we will be sharing all kinds of maps in the future. But it's really important to kind of set this foundation. And you really like the visuals and tools and all this stuff is nice, but if it's you got to think about what you want as a business owner, as a leader in the organization, and those positioning statements that we mentioned. So I think that's the biggest takeaway is, at first, like as you get started before implementing any tool, you have to make, the bet, at least the hypothesis of this is the problem that I'm trying to solve. This is who I solve it for. And this is how I solve it. I being yourself or the business, your products, your services. If you can't state those things, you're gonna have a tough time.
From all the different perspectives, like because you can't answer that from just one perspective because then you're not looking at the whole picture.
Yes, and once you get that feedback loop running with the customers, with the people that you're trying to help, it only stops if you stop it. Honestly, like you should always have it open, always be leaning into it. It's there if you want it. So this has been awesome. Thanks so much for helping out with this project overall. I'm really excited to get this started today, and we'll be seeing you every Monday at 9 a.m. Central.
Yep,
And so while you think about where you are in your business and who you want to be, who you're trying to help, how you want to help them, look for that opportunity and let's grow.
Yep.
Have a great week, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Chat soon.